Hi everybody and welcome to video number 3 looking at the Diamond, the DA40 next generation. It's the one with the Garmin 1000 autopilot and GPS unit. And this video will look specifically at how the Stream Deck plays a part in controlling that primary flight display. Because I use both my X-Touch Mini controller and the Stream Deck to work this. So let's just bring up the flight simulator and have a close-up look. So I've done a more in-depth video about this when I did the Cessna C172, so I'll put a link in the description and hopefully have a little pop-up come up about now, somewhere around now, if I can get that to work, so that you can link directly to it if you need more in-depth information. I'm kind of putting it into the DA40 sequence in case that's the playlist that you're following and you're working in sequence, so it's there for completeness, but I don't want to put another hour-long video up or whatever it was explaining every single step of it. I'm just going to give you the basic philosophy overview, and if you can take it from there yourself, that's brilliant. If you're struggling a little bit, want a bit more explanation, go and explore the video on the Cessna series and follow the links and you'll get there. So the split is anything with a rotary controller or possibly the button that goes with it. They are on my X-Touch Mini controller, and we'll have a video about that later on. It's these buttons here, these soft buttons, and a few of these here that I put onto my Stream Deck because they're just buttons to press. And the advantage of that is if I use the Stream Deck, this text here that's above the buttons changes depending which mode I'm in. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes if I press the CDI button, it just functions and does its stuff and doesn't change the text. But if I press on something like PFD, you can see the text changes here, and then I have to go back again to that mode. And in fact, there are 8 different layouts, 8 different modes that I want the text to come up with. And I'll show you how I do that later on. But what I do first of all, I will just show you very quickly how you can set up a basic version. If you're happy with when you're flying, sort of counting across and saying, I want to use my transponder, counting across, it's button 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, button number 9, and then counting across to button number 9 and pressing it, or labeling them and looking for number 9 and pressing it. It's fine, it works, and I'll show you how that it does work. But if you want to have the text reflected on the buttons, you need to do a little bit more work. It's not that hard, it's just a bit time consuming. But anyway, let's set up a very basic version. So what I need to do is to create a folder. The idea with folders is that it's not changing the profile that we're in. We'll still be wherever we are, and we can get into it and out of it. So we can have another series of buttons, another sort of screen as part of the same profile. So it makes profile management a bit easier, but it doesn't really work for how I want this to develop. But let's do the easy version. It's an event. It's a Lorby Axis and O event that we're putting in. And we can put a graphic on there. I've done a screen grab of one of the buttons, so we can drop it on there, make it look like one of the buttons. That's fine. And we are going to write an event to it now. So we get the events, of course, from X's and O's, and you can do it from here, or you can do it from your script editor and insert a sim event there. These events that we're going to use only come up once we're actually in the aircraft and the instruments that we want to program, because they change. They're different from aircraft to aircraft. They are HTML variables, H variables, which are allocated specifically to an instrument or specifically to an aircraft. So you won't find them until you're actually in the aircraft. I'll do it from here for the moment. Makes no difference. We'll get to the same event either way. But what I want to do is to have a key down event, and it's in the HTML variables, and there are loads and loads of them available. So what we want to do is, of course, to apply a filter. And the filter I'm going to use here is the 1000 underscore PFD. So it narrows it down to the G1000, which they label AS1000 for some reason, and make sure it's the PFD because there's still loads more. So this will narrow it down as much as possible. and it's an HTML variable, and what we're looking for is the soft keys, and you can see it gives us soft key 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, of course 10, 11, 12 are here because it's in alphabetical order, not numerical order. But for this one here, I'm going to put it in as soft key 1. So we do our usual trick of highlight it, right hand click on the mouse, and then we can close stuff down. And we have to change it here to an H, because it's an HTML variable, so it needs to know that. And it's automatically going to send the value 1, which means I've pressed on it. We don't change that value, whether it's soft key 2 or 3 or 4, it still sends a 1. 1 is the on, the boolean on, of course. And we click submit. Now what we could do is we could put a number on here, so that we know that's button number 1. And I'll put it in white because it looks prettier. Okay, so we could do that. We could put that title on there. That will be helpful. So what I could do now is I could just duplicate this across and then edit it. It saves hunting down this again. We just need to edit that 1 to a 2 and a 3, and I'll do a couple for you, and then I'll pause and fix and get them sorted, and then bring you back in again, so you don't have to watch the whole process endlessly. So best done with the keyboard shortcuts. Control C, arrow keys move across, insert, insert, insert. So I need 12 of them, so 6 across there, and I'll have 6 underneath. But they're all identical and they need editing up. So I need to go into here and change that to a 2, and change the fact it's soft key number 2 that's being pressed, and submit it. And then do the same for this one, change that to a 3 and that to a 3, and submit it. I'm going to go pause it now, and I'll do the rest and bring you back in when I've done them. Okay, see you in a while. And welcome back. So I've done all the hard work for you behind the scenes. So each of the buttons now has its soft key and its number allocated on there. And I can show you that working. Let's just move some things out of the way. Of course you can't see my actual finger pressing it, but press the appropriate button and you can see it happen. So if I press on button number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that should be the OBS working. So nothing much happens other than it lights up OBS. I will do a separate video on the OBS because it's a nice little function, and show you how that works. Same with CDI. That doesn't make any great changes to this, other than you can see that it switches here between VOR1, 2 and GPS. That's what that does, but it hasn't changed any text here. If I press on button number 1, 2, 3, 4, that takes us into PFD mode, where we've got various functions that we can use. And then if I press on button number 11, that will take us back. So it's working fine. As a process, it works. All the buttons do all work, but it's not very helpful not having it showing here. Let me take you back and show you my version in action. So I'm going to press on the PFD button here and just show you it working. So do the same thing again. I will press on the OBS button, and I've got OBS written on there, and you can see that it's lighting up here, and I can turn the OBS off. If I go into PFD, that changes the functions. You can see it all now. That's reflecting what's on here. And if I press on the back button, which is number 11, it takes us back and the text changes. Now, because it's a folder, we do need a button to take us back out to the cockpit. Again, it hasn't got the automatically created button. I have to actually create that. But that's how I've done it. And the way it's done is we have to have a number of profiles. At the moment, we're in the main profile for the DA40ng. And if I click on PFD, that's changed me to a profile that I've called the DA40 PFD main profile. And if it changes profiles, so if I change it to, say, the transponder, that one I've named the DA40, it's still for the primary flight display, and it's the transponder display. And I go back. The one that's weirdly named is this one here, because it's for the primary flight display and it's the PFD button. So my profile here is labelled DA40 PFD BFD. If you're not sure about profiles, click on here and we can bring up profiles, and you can create and copy and duplicate and all that kind of stuff here. So what I did was I created one blank one for the DA40, which just had hotkey 1, 2, 3, 4 programmed just like the folder did, and then I duplicated it and edited it each time and ended up with 8 of them, and I kind of build it on the fly as I needed it, and I'll show you how I did that. Let's close up a little bit here. So for instance, let me just go back to my main one here. In fact, if I take you right out to the cockpit and talk about that, this button here used to be a multi-action button. In fact, it is multi-action still, but it only has one action. What it used to do was switch to the profile, and the profile it switches to, of course, is the main for the BFD, but I also had it so it switched to this close-up view. I used a keyboard shortcut to do that, which had its downfalls, because if I'd clicked away into looking at a flight plan or a map or something and forgotten to click back here, then it didn't read the keyboard shortcut and it didn't do the it didn't zoom in, and it was all a bit flaky. So I've taken it out. Also, I use a head tracker now, so I don't really need to zoom in, because I can zoom in just by leaning into the screen and leaning back out. But I've left it as a multi-action so that I can put it back in if I want to. Anyway, it is a multi-action that I've used. So the PFD takes me into there. What I can do now is that's still as hotkey 1, soft key 1. It doesn't do anything, but it's the same here. If I click on there, it will send the command, but it gets ignored because it's not programmed up. But anything that changes to a new layout needs to become a multi-action, because it's got to send 2 things. For instance, if I click on inset, it's got to send the event, the Orbit Axis and O event that I pressed button number 2. So that gets sent through Axis and O's to Microsoft Flight Simulator. But I also have to tell the Stream Deck that I want to change the profile. So that becomes has to become a multi-action. But if you're using that idea that I had of creating a blank one and then renaming it, these will all be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc. If you then decide that that one has to become multi-action, what you can do is, so I'll demonstrate it here. I can right click on it and tell it to move to become a multi-action. So that will put that soft key 3 in the multi-action, and you just have to add the appropriate profile to it. So it speeds up your development. If you've got them all already laid out and you say, oh, this one needs to be a multi-action, just right hand click on it and move it to multi-action. I can't do that with this one because it already is a multi-action. Once it's become a multi-action, that's it. It can't be changed. So let's have a look at the actions that this one takes. So if I click on here, if I click on the inset here, that's not going to change this layout here. I'm just going to do it live on here to show you it working. So if I click on inset there, that brings up the inset here, which I can then turn off. It's also got a couple of functions that I don't think actually work at the moment. I presume in the next update we're going to get some more functions. I hear a rumour they're putting in the enforcing a new version of this on this. There may be some extra work to do on this later on, but that doesn't work and that doesn't work, but the back button does. This one's a bit weird because when I click on off, it turns this off, but it also takes us straight out of the menu back to the main. So click on off and it switches off the inset and it's taken us back out to the main. And if I click on inset, it switches it back on again. So to get out of it and leave the inset on, if you want that, you need to press the back button and that takes you back without switching it off. So we need to reflect that in our programming here. So the inset button has that multi-action that it sends the fact that we've pressed button number 2, and it also tells us to change to the inset. So that works fine. So let's just do that now. I'm going to press inset and that has changed my profile here and we're in the inset. So my off button has to have 2 actions on it. So it has to be a multi-action. Tells it I pressed button number 1, which turns off the inset and tells it to switch it back to the main profile. Okay, so that has to be there. all. And that's why we can't use folders inside folders, because when you click on a folder, it can't do two actions. So if you use a folder and it's got an up action that's going to take you back up a level, it only takes you back up a level, and it won't issue the command that needs to go onto here to tell it you've changed. So you can't have folders in folders for this particular task. The topo button, I said it doesn't do anything, it doesn't change any text, so it is just straightforward single action. I've pressed software key number 5, and same for next rad, it's just as I've pressed number 8. Alerts is just I've pressed button number 12, so that doesn't need to change. This one of course has to be programmed up, and it's different on every one of the profiles. It's always the same that we are pressing number 11, but which profile it switches to is different. That one's going to take us back to the main menu. So we program that in. It's a multi-action. I've pressed 11 and now switch the profile for me. So let's do that action. So I'm going to press here on the back, on my actual Stream Deck. I'm pressing on the device, and that's taking me back. So let's run across them, and I'll do it in the Stream Deck so you can see what I need to do. There's only allocated number 3 to it, doesn't do anything. PFD is going to change to the profile, so it's going to send the event and change it to the demo PFD. So let's do that. So we've changed to there. Now this has a number of layers to it. Again, if you look at the real thing, the synthetic vision, the SynVis, that has the ability to turn the terrain on and off, and has a back button. So within our Stream Deck, that SynVis has to have a profile change, and it's got the 2 actions, and it's going to change it to a SynVis profile. And that SynVis profile doesn't go anywhere, so there's no more layers, but it does have of course the trusty back button, which is a multi-action, and the actions will be that we press button number 11 and switch me back to the PFD profile. So you need to sort of draw a map or something for yourself of what's going to what if you're getting a bit lost, but I'm going to press the back button now and take me back there. So that's what that one does. This one here also has a sub profile. If I click on wind, that has 3 options and an off, so 4 options, and a back. These are just simple key presses. So let's change the profile here. Option 1, option 2, option 3. This is just straightforward. I've pressed these soft keys. The only one that has a profile is the back button that takes us back again to the main PFD. So we're still here in the PFD profile. DME just brings up the DME. Bearing 1 allows us to switch through what's happening here on this insert, and turns it off. That one needs a sub profile, whether you want the 360 or the ARC version. And then we need the back button, so we need a profile for that one. Bearing 2 does the same as bearing 1, so you don't need another profile for that one. And the back button just takes us back. So let's just take ourselves back up to the main now. So press on back there. So there we are. That's let's get that turned off. We'll turn off timer reference for the moment. So that one needs a sub profile. That one needs a sub profile and a couple of sub profiles below it. That one doesn't. That one doesn't. This one here, the ADF and DME, doesn't need any more profiles. It just brings up an insert and takes it away again, so we don't need to worry too much about that one. The transponder has a couple of layers, so let's go to the transponder. That allows us to do standby on and alt, so they're just ordinary soft buttons. don't need anything added to them. VFR literally just takes us back to the 7000 code, so we don't need to write this one. But if we click on code, that does take us to another profile, so we need a sub profile for here where it allows us to put in the numbers that are read out to us. Ident doesn't go anywhere, backspace doesn't go anywhere, it just does a backspace, so that just works for us for putting the code in. So it's just this button here that's multi-action, everything else is just standard, and this one here takes us on the back button back up to here. Of course ident just turns on the ident, and off again, it doesn't really do anything particular. There we go, that's, in fact I'm not even sure it does anything particular. Let's put a code in and we'll take that back up and we'll turn it on. Now let's press the ident button. Didn't really spot anything? No, not me. So we'll turn that off. Okay. Obviously the back button does what it's supposed to do and will take us back. So that's the transponder. Timer reference, again, there's no submenu for that one. Just every time we press it, it brings up whether it's a timer or the reference that we're going to be using on that one. Nearest, let's just see the nearest airports, and alerts just turns the alerts off. So just working out which ones need a sub profile put in, and if I bring those profiles up and just show you the list of profiles that I've created to do that. There's the main one for the HSI format, one for the PFD, the wind, the inset, the synviz, the code, and the transponder itself. They're the different layers that we need to, profiles we need to work out. Okay, last ones to look at is I've put these soft buttons here, which I don't use very often, but I put them in here for completeness so that I can do a direct to from here, or bring up a menu which has got a PFD setup, which we can, it says press the cursor button. What can I do with it? Not sure if I can do very much with it. Never been there before. And it says to do that to turn to the main page. Press the FMS cursor button. Doesn't seem to work. So let's turn that menu off. Yep. Okay. Procedures, we can bring them up and activate them from here. Clear and enter. So I put those onto, where's my Stream Deck on? Here it is. I have put them on here. So the way we do that, they are just they're just events, and we just do the usual hunt down through here using that filter. So it's the same filter as we had before. And we're looking for the PFD director, and they're in alphabetical order, so we just click on there, highlight it and paste it into there, etc. So all these buttons are pretty much the same. It's the menu push, and you just hunt them down, you'll find them. The flight plan push, procedure push, clear. You could put the a long press event in there if you wanted to have a long press clear, but doesn't really make much sense on that particular one. And there's the end push. So they're relatively easy to find. Ooh, why is that different there? What's happened? Perhaps the enter doesn't work. Let's have a look at fixing that. It looks like I may have pressed a delete button at some point by accident. So let's go and repair some damage while we're here. So I want the PFD int push. PFD int push, tidy up here. There we are, that should be better, so we'll submit that. Okay, so that's it. You could of course have these buttons appearing on any of the sub pages as well. So if I go to my inset, that's got them there as well. Have I got it on the PFD? Yes, you can copy those across and put them onto each of the sub profiles as you like. So that's it really for the PFD side of things. I'll just quickly mention the MFD. If I could bring that up. Let's bring my Stream Deck again. This one here. Really, there isn't very much to it. The options available to you are the topo and next rad, which I'm not quite sure what it does, but they're there, which appears to zoom us in, and you can't do very much with it really. So what I haven't really bothered programming them in, to be honest. All I wanted to do was from my Stream Deck. Let's go back to the main one. So we're going to work our way back up the system. My MFD button here, all it did was switch to the profile, and I didn't actually do anything to it. So I found that that's a bit of a waste of time, to be honest, programming anything into that. So I'm not going to really do a video on that at all. There's so little in these functions here, and everything else is allocated to my X-Touch Mini. All these buttons here are on there because I want to use that when I'm using these knobs to do flight plans and enter data. So I've not bothered with those. It may change when the update happens, and so if they bring in the NXI version that might have other functions on there. Or if I get to grips with what the topo and the next rad does, perhaps I'll do some work on that. But at the moment, it's a defunct button. So, next video will be about the radio stack. But again, I've done a detailed version of that, so hopefully that'll be fairly quick. I can just say, this works, this doesn't work, that kind of thing. Okay, right, see you in the next video then.